Howdy! In this video, we will be examining Chapter 4 of Governing Texas. This chapter focuses on political parties in Texas by assessing their organization and role in local and national politics. For this tutorial, we will view political parties in the context of political shifts over time. A more recent political development within the last generation has been the idea of partisan polarization. Dictionary definitions of polarization emphasize the presence of opposing or conflicting principles, tendencies, or points of view. One could view this idea like a magnet, two ends of one bar with greatly different modes of attraction or repulsion. In this figure, taken from an article in the Annual Review of Political Science, one can better understand what it means to have polarized and non-polarized ideals. With increased polarization, thoughts and ideas tend to find their way to one of the two extremes, as opposed to a middle ground. So what does this mean in terms of party politics? It's increasingly difficult for politicians to compromise on important policy issues. In some cases, compromise is seen as a sign of weakness, or giving up to the other side. Ultimately, in Texas, increased partisan polarization, associated with party socialization, leaves moderates and third parties with little influence. Let's examine some of the effects of partisan polarization. In 1952 and 1956, when Texas was largely a one-party state, Democratic Governor Allen Shivers led a movement known as the Shivercrat movement. Allen Shivers was a conservative Democrat as well as one of the most able Texas governors of the 20th century. However, Shivers and his conservative faction chose to back Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower for president over the Democratic opponent Adlai Stevenson. Their reasoning was that much of the Democratic Party, including Stevenson, had become too liberal in their eyes. This act was seen as a great disloyalty to the Democratic Party and led to much tension between liberal and conservative Democrats. But the fact of the matter was that shifting ideologies made many question the compatibility of their views with their chosen party. With conservatism being actively redefined, a voting pattern known as presidential republicanism was strengthening. Like what happened with the Shivercrats in 1950, the conservative Texas voters would vote Democratic for state offices, but Republican for presidential candidates. With the advent of the Shivercrat movement, these conservatives grew in number and found that their thoughts were more closely aligned with the Republican Party. From this point onward, presidential republicanism would endure in Texas and much of the southern states through the 1990s and beyond. While the Democratic Party of the time was seen much more of an umbrella party encompassing a vast selection of groups, a schism between conservative and liberal beliefs became evident during the 1950s. This internal division inevitably led to the growth of the Republican presence in Texas and a stronger distinction between party views. Overall, polarization has led to the conservative and liberal party identifications that we know today.